Welcome to Chamber Exchange, a TV show. My name is Tim Murray, President and CEO of the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce. And Chamber Exchange TV show is an opportunity for us to bring on guests, important guests, who run businesses or organizations or involved with important public policy issues in the region. And I want to thank our sponsors who helped make the show happen, which is Bank Hometown. Want to thank them, and I'm pleased to have with us in our opening segment Andy Davis, who is the Airport Director of the Worcester Regional Airport. Andy, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're not new to the show. You're a wily veteran. You've been on many occasions in lots of different locations as we dealt with COVID. But maybe you could just give us an update on where things are with Worcester Regional Airport. I mean, nationally, number of airlines impacted by the employee shortage, weather issues. That was felt in every airport across the country. Worcester Regional Airport, no different.
Well, I'm pleased to say that we put a rebound plan together once the airline suspended service out of Worcester from the effects of the pandemic. They all made a commitment to come back at some point. They just didn't know when based on the conditions of the pandemic. And as of November 2nd of last year, the last of the 3 airlines returned with all 5 flights a day, a mixture of new markets, but still, they came back, and we, as opposed to a number of other airports that are still building their network back up to pre-COVID numbers, we're back 100%.
So in fact, net
111% of what we were before, because in fact, American and Delta came back with larger regional jets, where they can now provide 2-class service. So we're about 11% more with number of seats that are out of Worcester prior to the pandemic.
So those airlines are JetBlue, American Airlines, and Delta.
And Delta, correct. And the changes were JetBlue did return with their Lauderdale flight, which is very popular. But in lieu of putting a flight back into Orlando, they put a second flight into Kennedy. Similarly, American came back originally to Philadelphia, but moved their flight to New York's Kennedy Airport, and Delta, instead of Detroit, is now going to LaGuardia. So that's beneficial, particularly the business person. You've got higher frequency to a business market, as well as the connecting opportunities from there, more options throughout the day. For example, with 2 flights a day to Kennedy on JetBlue, the morning connection opportunities are fantastic down to the Florida markets, the Caribbean markets. The afternoon, you've got the international markets. So the world is a one-stop opportunity out of Worcester.
So that frequency and redundancy. So if a meeting runs late, or planes are delayed, or there's some type of bump, you've got right now out of JFK to Worcester 3 different flights daily.
Correct.
And then to LaGuardia
once a day.
Right. So 4 flights, New York City back and forth. I'll just tell you, I had a chance a couple months ago to fly to New Orleans, and I flew from Worcester to JFK to New Orleans and back out of Worcester Regional Airport, and it couldn't have gone better. And
exactly.
So it's both for, I think, the leisure and business traveler, it's worth looking into.
Absolutely, especially if you're having to make a connection anyway. There are several markets that you just simply can't get a nonstop out of any of the airports in the region. If you're going to Des Moines, for example, you're not going to find a nonstop. If you're going to make a connection, might as well do it out of our hometown airport.
That's right, and it's nice to not have to spend 3 hours before you're supposed to be there. So 76% daily average travelers are up 76% since the start of the year.
Right.
From your sense of things, leisure, business, what's the mix?
Actually, this is purely observation, but historically, Worcester has been a very leisure market, particularly with the JetBlue flights down to Florida. Now the mix is going more towards business, even though globally and nationally, business travel hasn't rebounded as much as leisure has in the aviation industry. We see an uptick to New York because of that high frequency we just talked about. So that shows frequency does have a payoff for the business. So well, we used to be maybe 90% leisure. We're probably talking maybe 80% leisure because of the uptick in business.
Well, we've seen, with Massport's ownership now 10 plus years, I believe it is.
That's right.
10 plus years. Significant investments from the Massport, as well as Congressman McGovern being able to secure funding, most significantly the Category 3 instrument landing system. But recently the Massport board approved a pretty significant ongoing investment to their whole apparatus, but Worcester's a part of that.
Sure. You know, when we took ownership in 2010, we started doing some significant investments, well over $100 million to date. And the latest board approved has another $18 million to go into continuous improvements in the airport. For example, during the pandemic and the shutdown, we repaved, resurfaced half of our primary runway. That's 7,000 feet long, 150 feet wide. We've got in the plan now this next fiscal year to do the other half. Other safety-related improvements, basically to keep a modern airport even more modern. And we're also working on making the customer experience that much better. Right now we have a single-lane security checkpoint where we've worked and got approval from the design from the TSA to install a second lane and actually relocate it so that we don't have that compressed area in the departure lounge where the lane is now. We're moving it to the outer section of the upper level, making it much more convenient and to provide redundancy to the security checkpoint. For example, if a unit goes down, that slows down the check-in line. So we're trying to make a very convenient airport that much more convenient.
No, I was just going to say that. I mean, the feedback that you've got, as the airport, again, prior to COVID and as we come out of COVID, for people who had not used Worcester Airport at all or hadn't used it a long time, the one thing that you consistently heard is how much people appreciated the convenience Absolutely. Of it. You don't get lost. There's people there to help, and it's just it's a really customer-friendly experience.
Sure is.
So we as we taped the show, breaking news. We talked a little bit about before the show, but recently, Spirit Airlines and Frontier Airlines have proposed a merger, which will require the federal government to vet and review that. In their proposed merger, they specifically cited Worcester Regional Airport as a place that they would likely expand flights into if the merger is approved. In the aftermath of that proposal, JetBlue put in a bid to buy Spirit. Spirit was considering that, but yesterday said that they are not interested in JetBlue's acquisition and want to move forward with the merger. Any thoughts on what that may mean for Worcester Airport?
Yeah, it goes back to the formula we have been looking at ever since Spirit and Frontier announced their intentions. And, we were all pleased to see that they recognized Worcester specifically as one of the airports that they see expanding their network in.
I think there were four that they specifically
There were four,
mentioned.
Eugene, I believe Ithaca, but these are markets that would benefit the combined Spirit and Frontier by adding more destination, more options for their travelers. And it just reflects that we put Worcester on the map because we have been talking to both Spirit and Frontier for some time. So for them to start going through the list of airports that are potentially expansion opportunities for them, they heard from us already, so glad to see that they're looking at us closer.
Yeah, and that Spirit Frontier, is in the news, literally as we speak. But there's also other airlines that Massport leadership, yourself, Ed Frenny, Lisa Wieland, and the team are talking to as airlines, look to return flights and look at up-and-coming destinations.
Sure. We're obviously working with our existing partners, American, JetBlue, and Delta, to increase their frequency, but we're also in constant communication with the legacy carriers for more hub-and-spoke opportunities to other business markets, low-cost carriers for point-to-point service, and the newest upstart ultra-low-cost carriers to dip their toe in the New England market.
Right. And also in the news in the last week or two, Massport leadership working with the city, the chamber, and others, looking at the redevelopment of some of the parcels. Worcester, when they had the airport developed in the early 80s, the Airport Industrial Park, which has been widely successful, creating pad-ready sites for modern manufacturing distribution centers. Potentially some opportunities for some expanded redevelopment up in and around the airport.
Absolutely. These are parcels we've identified. We looked at several parcels on our 1,300 acres of property up on top of the hill. And these two specific, as you mentioned, are pretty much pad ready. And the unique thing about these two particular parcels, they're not at the elevation of the runways. So it's not conducive to having a hangar there without significant grade changes and whatnot. So we saw that as an opportunity to put out to the overall industry, whether that's manufacturing, industrial, warehousing. There's a growing demand, as you know, in the city of Worcester for more real estate, and this is going to help support that increased demand as well as the revenue generating opportunities for the city.
That's right. So requests for proposals or out there?
Are coming out very quickly.
Coming out soon.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Andy Davis, the airport director of Worcester Regional Airport, it's great to have you back on with an update as we come out of into the spring and out of Omicron, and it's just great to see the airport moving in the right direction.
Great, thank you.
Good. Stay with us. We're going to come right back on this for the next segment of Chamber Exchange, a TV show.
These days, you've got your hands full in life. That's why we help you bank simply and securely with tools like Face ID and Touch ID. It's why we make it easy to make purchases on the go and get cash back while you're at it. Why we help you quickly deposit checks wherever you are. And it's why we lend a hand with sending and receiving money right from your phone. So even when you're on the move, you can manage your finances. Bank Hometown. Unlock your potential.
Worcester, a city with heart, history, and promise. A hub of innovation in life sciences, education, and healthcare. Home to multi-generational families, first-generation citizens, and next-generation baseball and hockey greats. Home to great parks, world-class museums, theaters, and restaurants. Worcester, the place to visit, to invest, and to call home.